fear of failure to me is minimal because the fear of regret is bigger.
The reality is the world isn't a positive place. A lot of people are just lying to themselves.
My dad's a crackhead, my mom's a single mother who just literally kept us alive. When you overthink, you never get on the field. Ever.
There comes a certain point where when you make more money than you need, you should think about what you want to give back to people. What's been the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur for you so far?
I think the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur is you're isolated sometimes, right? So you have to handle all the big decisions. You know, I'm a solopreneur, so all the decisions, I don't have a partner. So I have to make these decisions, and I'm always in uncharted territory. I was a Wall Street guy for 25 years. Now I'm a coach. I didn't even know what social media was till 2 years ago. Now we're doing a TEDx talk, writing a book, putting a program together, all these things. I've never done it, and I'm 53. So for me, it's really balancing being overwhelmed and moving in the right direction.
So since you're now a solopreneur and you have to rely on yourself, but in your past, I imagine on Wall Street, it's a lot of networking, right? Rubbing shoulders with the right people to, get in on deals. I don't know exactly what your history is, but I'm just making an assumption. How do you maintain your network, or do you not bother to maintain that network, or have you tried to build a new network? Kind of, what's that process been for you?
You know, it's interesting because a lot of my clients are Wall Street guys. I'd say 50% of my business. But when you're a hedge fund guy, it's literally how good is your research and how good is your decision making. Are connections important? Somewhat, right? Because you want information, but it's very different. When you're a hedge fund, you're on the buy side of the business, right? You're not the Morgans, the Goldmans of the world. So you're a client, right? But for us on as a hedge fund guy, you're looking for best information, best preparation, best decision making. Now, on the other side, as a coach, as you run a business, you're creating something. They're very two different skill sets. So being a hedge fund guy for 25 years, I now have to really restart a new business, right? Because when you're hedge fund guy, you don't need social media, right? You're not speaking on stages. You're not doing any of this stuff. So when I became a coach at 46, I really had to recreate who I was. So it was a complete reinvention of Evan Marks.
I think that's a really important skill to have at any age because of how fast the world is changing. And I think a lot of people listening to this are just starting out for the first time. They're probably a lot younger than both of us. And so they're probably thinking about, how can I develop the skills to develop skills faster in order to continue to compete? Is there anything that you've learned in the last few years being a coach, going from that hedge fund career, that has helped you to develop skills faster that people could learn from?
Well, it's interesting because I'm a mental performance coach. So we all have fear of something. So I realized that, as I get bigger and bigger and try new things, I'm going to fail at certain things. So the fear of failure to me is minimal, because the fear of regret is bigger. So when you think about stacking skills, you have to understand that the possibility of failure is there, but the possibility of success is there as well. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build things, be curious. When you overthink, you never get on the field, ever. So get on the field, experiment, see what it is though, because once you start that momentum train, you're in good shape. It's never perfect. Sean, you know that, and I know it. You're an entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur. It's never perfect. And imagine if it was perfect. Your growth is limited then. I make so many mistakes and failures, I don't have enough paper to write it down on. But I'm moving ahead each day though. So I'm willing to stretch myself and to see and be curious of what happens. And that's how skills are built.
Do you think the fear of failure is stronger on Wall Street as a hedge fund manager or as a business owner?
The feedback loop on Wall Street is massive. It's the quickest feedback loop. Your nervous system is getting attacked constantly. So I would have to tip my hat to Wall Street traders and PMs. I think it's a little harder because you are dealing with massive uncertainty at all times. So, as a Wall Street guy, you got to be comfortable with uncertainty and confident in your behavior because you could have everything right and be massively wrong. So, am I as stressed as I used to be on Wall Street? The answer is no. However, I'm still allowed to be overwhelmed because I want to build something that creates impact. But I will not, my Wall Street days, I am much healthier than I've ever been. Being a trainer and PM is not easy. It's a very challenging profession.
In a sea of coaches, how do you stand out? What is different about you and your message and your process that makes people want to work with you over someone else?
I think a lot of coaches live in the world of positive psychology. And Sean, I'm the opposite. So I believe that we don't have an app that tells us when obstacles, hurdles, challenges, and emergencies happen. So we live in the camp of opportunistic reality. So we prepare when things go bad, right? Because my clients, I call them my team. So people that I coach, I call my team, are always ready. So for us, emotions are data. We're in the camp of behavioral change, right? That's what we're constantly doing. So what makes us different is that we are not always wishing for a beautiful day. We're ready for any moment. So it's almost like a jaguar in the brush, right? Where that aggressive patience, you could feel your heart. So we really marry the why. Why do we do what we do, and how? How does the brain really work? So we put that together. So in moments of chaos, my people are ready to strike. Period. The end. But it's science based. Everything I do is science based. It's not fluff. It's not positive psychology. Obviously, positive psychology and positive attitude are different things. But we are always ready to strike. And I really believe in times of chaos is what differentiates everybody.
Do you think it's because of your experience in Wall Street that you had so many of those heart pumping experiences when markets are moving really fast and you're trying to get in and out of opportunities, to save yourself or to
Definitely, but I was a D1 athlete. I went to UPenn. I was a lacrosse guy, blew my knees out twice, significantly impaired. I was just a student now instead of a student athlete. Then I spent 25 years on Wall Street where nobody talked about emotions and all this stuff. And I wish they did, right? I've had performance coaches get bigger, do the work, get bigger. That didn't work. So Wall Street definitely had a massive impact on me. And so when I coach people, our experiences are completely different, but the approach is also different. Like, Sean, you're different than John, different than Bob, different than Sally. Everybody comes from a different spot, but a lot of it literally is psychological. And then understanding how the brain really works is the added advantage.
So I I have long been a fan of positive psychology only because there's too much negativity out there. At the same time, I've been accused by many people of being a pessimist, for which I say I'm an eternal realist. But the reality is, the world isn't a positive place. And so there's a lot of negativity in the human species. And so it's difficult to operate on a positive psychology model as a realist, knowing that a lot of people are just lying to themselves in order to accomplish that, unfortunately. So I also agree with you. I think a lot of people don't talk about their emotions. I think my generation, and I think my parents' generation grew up without emotions, like without the conversation on emotions.
Yeah.
But my parents were smart enough to talk to me about emotions. And that's enabled me to be one of the more open and capable communicators of the people that I know of my generation. And I I wish more people had the ability to be more open-minded and capable of change through the ability to be vulnerable. So, do you work with them on their vulnerability in order to build them up to be enabled to be ready for whatever happens? Or how do you get them ready?
When you think about, when we talk about these negative emotions, like negative, all it is an emotion. It's a data point. The body knows that when we feel joy and we feel panic, it's literally 9 or 10 seconds you're in that emotion. It's how we attach behavior and experience to it. Because the body wants to run homostatically, right? So the body wants to come to this baseline. So when we talk about vulnerability, you're talking about the truth about who you are. So it's so interesting. I think you and I spoke about it when we had a call earlier. When we think about self-improvement, when people are obsessed over self-improvement, they get further and further away from who they actually are. So when we understand who we are internally, what makes us tick, what does our programming look like growing up, all these things, then real improvement begins. But for a lot of people, they're trying to restore something that was taken in this obsession of self-improvement. But if you don't know what you're really improving, you got to know who you are first. Thus, answering your question, you got to be a little vulnerable. So when I have clients, they know it's an open book. I can't do my job if I don't know everything. So when you build this trust with a client, that's where the magic happens. When you're allowed to be vulnerable, you're allowed to tell your truth, that's where the magic happens. Right? Because you're open. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. I mean, listen, for many it's scary, and I get that. But without a doubt, Sean, that is where growth happens.
How do you build that trust? How do you put them in a place that allows them to become vulnerable for you?
As a coach, my job is to be present, to listen and ask questions. But also, for me growing up, and they asked me my story, I was raised by a single mother. My dad was a homeless crack addict. An older brother was handicapped. I've had my ups and downs also. Like, life is not linear for anybody. So I think they hear my story like, wow, this guy's successful, but he's had all these obstacles and hurdles in his life. So even though I share my journey a little bit, right? Even though obviously I'm there for the client, you start to build this trust. And quite frankly, Sean, because I fucking care. They know that their success and their well-being is a top priority for me. And the reason why they feel it, because they know it's true. It's funny, like sometimes when you think about it, obviously coaching is a great profession, right? And it could be very lucrative. But I look at it differently. Like, I'm here for impact. I really, if you were my client, I want the best for you. And I'll do whatever it takes.
Have you heard about Gen Z being this like lost generation of boys who've been disconnected from masculinity in their desperate search to kind of have that inner strength but don't know how to access it because they didn't have strong fathers in their life?
Gen Z is what years are those again? There's so many letters nowadays.
Gen Z is the one after millennials. So I'm a millennial. I'm one of the older millennials.
Millennial, right? Or you're an early millennial. How old are you? 40?
I'll be 40 in a few months. I'm one of the older millennials.
Older millennials, right? And I'm 53, so I am a Gen.
You're in Gen X, I think.
Am I Gen X? Yeah.
So I would say Gen Z is like 25. Like the oldest Gen Zs are probably 25, 26.
My youngest clients are probably 25 to 31 in that range. But it's interesting, like, I can't answer that question because I only deal with high achievers. So the people I work with come to me who want to get better, who want to talk about their emotions, who want to change their behavior, who want to push the limits. So the people that come to me are those people that I love coaching. So when we talk about the Gen Zs who are not in touch with their emotions, the people I deal with want to be coached, if that makes sense. So I deal with the elite who want to get better.
Do you think they're high achievers because something was lacking in their early childhood that gave them the ambition to prove themselves to themselves or to someone else, like a father that wasn't available?
So the question then is, what makes a high achiever, right? That's kind of the question you're asking.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I think how about this one? You have a phenomenal parents who were just incredible role models that pushed you and you became an incredible, whatever you did. Or you can come from a place of scarcity and made a decision to be phenomenal. I don't know what it takes, how somebody becomes a high achiever, but I know what it takes to stay there and to get better. There's so many different makeups, like you're a high achiever. You have very strong parents, let's say. I'm a high achiever. My dad's a crackhead. My mom's a single mother who just literally kept us alive. But then we both are high achievers. So it's very hard to answer that question. The question is, all high achievers have obstacles and hurdles that they have to go through. How do you get better and stronger? And how do you stay successful?
Yeah, that's a question I ask myself.
Mental performance right there.
I was very fortunate to have two loving and present parents who were very vulnerable and encouraging of me to have emotional intelligence and empathy. And I grew up thinking that that was the norm. I thought every child had this kind of a life. And then I got to college, I moved away, went to college, and I realized that most people are actually really messed up inside.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have anything close to the love that I experienced. And that was really hard for me because, like, damn, like, I thought that was normal, and now it seems I'm the weird one. I'm the normal one because I love myself and I believe in myself, and other people love me and believe in me and support me and encourage me. And I was sad when I realized this at the age of around 18, 19, because I wish that other people had that. It's like, why is it fair that someone gets ignored or abused, whether that's physical or psychological or sexual? They don't deserve, like, they've done nothing to deserve that from the people around them. Nobody deserves to be ignored or abandoned or anything like that, and yet it happens. And I think that that was really difficult for me in my earlier age with dating, because a lot of the women I found, not that I attracted them, but that was just what happened to be what I, the kind of women I met came from broken families. And it was really hard for me to see a future with them because they struggled to love themselves, and therefore they struggled to receive my love, and they were struggled to give me love. It was like, how can we have a family? How can we have kids together and be happy if you're constantly in this struggle with yourself about, fight or flight? If I give you love and you struggle with that, like, that's hard.
Through neuroplasticity, we can change. But the only way you change something is acknowledging it and working at it.
And most people don't want to do that.
You know what? Some people don't, right? But I work with the ones that do. Nobody, nobody's story is that vanilla, right? But everybody, there's a little bit of something in everybody's story. But you have to be all right with acknowledging it if you want to get better. So when you ask me that question about building trust and honesty, the key to change is knowing what you want to change and where you want to get better. So being in denial, what do they say? Ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, by the way, if you see nothing and you just keep moving on. But when you're not in denial and you do nothing about it, that is a very hard place to be.
It's painful.
It's extremely painful. Knowing that you can't change even though you want to. That is where coaches come in, therapists come in, all that stuff. Because you can. I really, and when we talk, as we just kibosh positive psychology, I do believe anything is possible. I do. But I know that you got to go through a little bit of muck. You have to. And it's not linear, right? I coach some amazing people. I mean, flat out amazing. But we all have some struggles sometimes. It's really, how do you get your feet? What are we trying to change? Where do I need to be? What's important now? Where is my focus right now? These are constant questions you ask yourself if you want to change. And what happens is, change doesn't have to be Herculean, but you have to be patient with progress. Because just like money, behavior compounds. Give yourself that time. Give yourself that grace to get better, end space, grace space, whatever, right? But give yourself the opportunity. I started M1 2.5 years ago. It's my coaching group. And I've been coaching about 8 years. And now we're doing a lot more. We did a TEDx talk in January. We have a book coming out at the end of this year, possibly beginning of 27. We have a course coming out. We got great clients. But as we build the speaking business, I know I'm not jumping on stage at the Garden. I got to start small somewhere, right? I have to get better as a speaker. I have to work on my stage presence. It does take experience and reps, but I know it. So this is the steps I need in order to get where I need to, in order to go where I want to go. It's important. Where people are like, I don't want to do this. It's going to take too long. You start stacking days, weeks, and months, time becomes an ally. And watch how fast things happen. I do believe that.
Do you get people coming to you that don't know what they need to change, but they think something needs to change? They just don't know what it is?
So people always come to me about a leaf on the tree. They think it's this leaf, and it's never the leaf they think it is. It's always about the roots, right? Because they're unconscious about it. So my job is to bring the unconscious conscious. And that's what I do as a coach. Right? So they think it's something, obviously, and it's never that thing that they think it is. Ever.
I like that you said that, because I was doing a mentoring session. There's a platform called Growth Mentor that I do free mentorship once in a while. And there was a woman that came to me and she said, I want to launch a certain kind of business. And we started to go through the details of it. I started to give her advice on how to launch it. She had sold a previous business, so she was sitting on some cash. And so I gave her tangentially some financial advice about how to protect that money and not do what I did, which is to put that money into the next business and lose it. And then you're back to, not square one for me, but, she had made less. So it's more important for her to be careful. And as I was talking to her, I realized actually the problem wasn't that she wanted advice on how to do this business, but that she had lost her sense of purpose and ambition after selling the previous business, but she wasn't talking about that. And so we got into that, and I was like, look, I understand. I had a business that I made a lot of money. And after that, I also lost my sense of purpose and ambition. And I struggled for years to find it. And finally I did, and now I'm back on a path that I'm happy with. But you have to figure that out. Like, you might love the idea of this business, but it might not be the right business for you. So before you put any effort into making this business happen, I think you should take a step back, protect your finances, and figure out what the hell your purpose is and what you want it to be. And I said, there comes a certain point where when you make more money than you need, you should think about what you want to give back to people. And maybe that business ends up being something that you do as a charity for people who are poor, right? It's like a travel business. Like maybe you let poor people experience travel overseas that they can't afford, because you have another business that actually is your thing that you're passionate about, that's making you millions of dollars and allows you to create this other thing that you just give away for people, that's your joy, right? But you have to find what your purpose is, and after you've made so much money, you kind of stop thinking about yourself and you start thinking about others. Not everybody does, some people do. I've heard of actresses that have like soup kitchens. They just put millions of dollars a year into feeding homeless people because that was the thing that called them to action. And they continue to act in order to continue being able to fund that thing, right? They don't need that money, but
Now you're talking about something very important: motivation. What motivates you, right? So as an entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur, you're motivated by money, right, and success, right? That's a possibility. You really have to define what you're motivated by. Like for me now, it's impact, right? I'm motivated by serving others, and that's my purpose, my meaning, my calling, whatever you want to call it. But like a great question to ask yourself, and that young lady, what am I motivated by? Like what gets me going? Like where do I find fulfillment? And by the way, fulfillment could be building businesses, giving people the opportunity to create. A lot of people just don't ask themselves these self-exploratory questions. They just don't. So they live in this unconscious state and going back, and they're thinking about it's a leaf when it's never the leaf. My clients know, like, when we feel that our foundation is a little shaky, take the proverbial step back and ask yourself a question. Whatever it is. Like for me, it's always, where do I need to be right now? Right? And that's kind of gets me centered. Have a question that you're asking yourself, right? Because for this woman who had success, she has to take that step back and look at the mountain and say, what motivates me now? I think it's important for anybody.
thanks for watching. If you liked this insight, I've handpicked another video for you right here on the screen. For more actionable strategies that get you real results, hit subscribe.